Hi guys and welcome. Demon here with an introduction to the carpet mod, which is a technical mod for vanilla game that allows to debug mob farm designs and measure mob farm performance. To achieve that, it uses for the most part carpets instead of commands and gives this many different types of carpets some use in the game. So let's go to the capabilities of this mod. Placing a pink carpet on a block will tell you what would spawn on that block assuming the carpet wasn't there. It also ignores player presence comparing to the actual algorithm, otherwise it will always say that nothing would spawn here because player is too close. At first, it tells what is the maximum Y value where a mob would actually spawn in that column, which is determined by the subchunk where the highest block that blocks the sunlight is. So in this case we are at the very bottom, so mobs will spawn only up to Y16. Making sure that your mob farm is not loading unnecessary subchunks can improve chances for mobs to spawn. If you were above this point, for instance walking on glass or hoppers, mobs would not spawn here even if they could on that blocks. Then we have a list of all the mobs from the main 4 mob groups that are considered for spawning at that particular location, with mob spawn chances in brackets which indicate how likely this mob is going to be chosen for spawning within that group. So in this case, if we check the hostile mobs, spiders, zombies, skeletons, creepers and slimes have equal chances of being selected, and endermen being 10 times and witch 20 times less likely to spawn. This is then followed by the pack size for this type, mostly 4, but we can see for instance here horses can spawn up to 6 animals in a pack at once. Content of these lists is specific to a biome, a structure, and sometimes even to a block. Then there is a number of conditions that need to be met in order for the spawn to be successful. First is the canSpawn attribute, which aggregates a number of conditions specific to the spawning algorithm which may prevent spawns from happening. If it says no, the mob will not be attempted to spawn, even if it's selected for spawning. We can see for example here that squid will not be attempted for spawning because there is no water here and water is required for water mobs to spawn in general. Then comes the fits attribute, whether this location can fit a mob of a particular type. If it doesn't fit, it won't spawn at this spot, which we can verify using this tool, but you need to figure out yourself why it doesn't fit. Spiders, for instance, can spawn here but will collide with this carpet on the next block and hence fail the collision test. The last attribute is the mob response to the spawn request. Does it like the place, are light levels okay, or maybe there are some other random factors. For instance, spiders would like this place if they didn't collide with the carpet. However, slimes would fit, but this is not a slime chunk, so they won't spawn. All passive mobs would not spawn because it's dark, dingy and not grassy enough. Note that all the hostile spawns will only succeed about 25% of the time, and that's because it's night, but also we are in the open area and spawn chances are reduced. If you place a block above, this blocks the sun axis a bit and increases chances for spawning to above 30%. So what this tool can be used for? You can check if you are in a slime chunk. You can check if you have a proper location for specific structures like a witch hut, ocean monument, or nether fortress. In the nether, interesting fact, zombie pigmen and ghast have comparable chances for spawning, but ghast will fail 95% of the time, so that's why we see less of them. Magma cubes will spawn 100% of the time, but they have overall less chances of being selected, which bring their numbers to ghast levels. Endermen have even lower chances of getting selected, but will not spawn here for some reason. Oh, light levels. You can determine what prevents mobs from spawning, like in this case spiders won't spawn under a solid block, but will under a stair. Will spawn also under a chest, but will not spawn under a trap chest, due to the fact that the trap chest can provide redstone power. So with pink carpet you wouldn't be able to tell why mobs do and don't spawn, but at least you can determine the chances for spawning. Obviously we can only place carpets in blocks where is air, and for spawning cases this is mostly what we need. But in some situations we may have blocks in this place, and to run this check we also have this command spawn list, which will tell us exactly this. So mobs will collide with this carpet, but will not with this tripwire, and this button here will prevent mobs from spawning. Like this one as well. Black carpet is for mob caps and mob lists. The basic usage is by placing it anywhere. It will tell you how full are the mob caps for a given mob class. When designing farms, peeps are often looking at the entity count, but this includes all the items, item frames, players, other mob classes we are not interested in. But with black carpet we can get an idea how many mobs are in the class we are interested in. For instance, we are here at the passive mob farm, which is now disabled, so ideally there shouldn't be any mobs in the passive class, but we can see there is one. To find it, we'll place black carpet on a specific wool. So the red wool symbolizes hostile mobs, bloodlust types, hence red. Green wool symbolizes passive mobs, as they for the most part require grass to spawn. Brown wool symbolizes ambient mobs, because obviously they are worth less than shit. And blue, water mobs, also known as squids. Placing black wool of any of these instead of telling us the mob caps will list all the mobs from that category with their location currently loaded in the game. Obviously, the list can exceed the scroll ability of the chat, but we are mostly interested in the cases where we would expect to have few or no mobs. Like in this case, we can check what this mysterious pig is, and we can find that we have to fence better the spawn chunks. If you don't want to place carpets, you can use command spawn entities or spawn entities then mob class to get the list as well. Red, green and lime carpets are to control certain aspects of the spawning game. Red is for turning things off, green is turning on or increased by 1, and lime as a brighter green is increasing by 10. Now, if you place the black carpet, we can notice that each class has a note that it will use 1 round per tick, and that's the default for vanilla. Each spawn tick, if a mob cap is not filled, a game will run once over all eligible chunks to spawn mobs. With carpet mode you can control this. What would you need it for? For instance, you can turn off spawning of certain groups, like freaking bats, or you can increase the spawning of certain groups to speed up the process of evaluating the spawnability of your designs. Obviously, we are not speeding up the game here, so this is not realistic in all scenarios, but helps to assess the spawnability. How you could assess it? By using black wool, which we can use to keep track of spawns in the game. When we place a green carpet on black wool, we instruct the game to start keeping track of mobs that spawn from that moment. Placing the carpet again will display for us the current spawns and spawn rates for each mob, again grouped into each class. We can finish the experiment by placing red carpet on black wool. Since that moment, spawns will not longer be tracked again. What we see in the results page is, for each class, the estimated duration since the beginning of the experiment in minutes, average number of mobs in each tick during that time, how often mob cap was filled during the spawn ticks, and for the remaining tries, what's the percentage of tries that failed and spawned no mobs at all, and how many of them were successful and did spawn some mobs. The last number is the number of mobs that spawned on average during attempts when the mob cap wasn't filled. This counts both successful and failed attempts. Grey wool represents mocking of the spawns, instead of actually spawning the mobs. In a sense, the game will attempt to spawn the mob, but just don't place them in the world. With the mob spawning turned on, it actually also neglects the mob caps. Mob spawns are run constantly, every tick. That's where increasing spawn rates to multiple rounds per tick makes sense. For example, with this here passive mob farm, mobs are always removed at each spawn cycle, so we don't need to worry about the passive mob caps. So we can use mock spawns to speed up the assessment of the farm output. First, you want to turn off squid spawning, because without mob caps, they would attempt to spawn every tick, which would crash the server, because of all the oceans around us. Then we are gonna turn on mock spawning with green carpet on grey wool. Increase passive mob spawns to, let's say, 50 times, and start the experiment. Now every real-time minute, we will be spawning 50 minutes worth of animals, and get our results quicker. Now, most hostile mob farms run at the mob cap, so increasing the spawn rates is less precise in this case, but if you would want to compare several designs, this will at least tell you which design can spawn more mobs, regardless how you kill them, so to speak. Remember the black carpet which we used to display the mob caps and list all the currently loaded entities from each class? With the mob tracking running, placing black carpet on respective mob class wool would tell us instead what were the 10 most recent spawns from that class while the experiment was running, even for mobs that have already died or despawned. How this can be useful? For instance, when you clear the perimeter fully from the spawnable spaces and you want just to verify that there is absolutely no other places mobs can spawn, so you can crank up the spawn rates up to the point the server is barely going to handle it, and when we get first few spawns, inspects where they were and find these few isolated places. There is also a way to control mob cap limits. Typically for hostile mobs it is 70, but many players use tricks like logging second account to increase this limit. With carpet mode, we can control it with light blue wool and red and green carpets. And by placing them on light blue wool, we increase and decrease mob caps for all groups at about 20% rate. It is actually tuned, so placing green carpet 4 times will exactly double the mob caps, and placing 4 red carpets will halve them. So you can test your designs with different mob caps as well, simulating different world scenarios using one single player world. If you want a more precise control, you can type spawn caps and then a number, and mob cap for hostile mobs will use this value, and mob cap for other types will be set proportionally. There are 2 extra features of lesser importance. Issuing command spawn version 1.8 will bring back the 1.8 spawn rules and fix some of the 1.9 spawn related bugs, meaning you could evaluate older designs in 1.9, for instance to reliably compare the rates. Typing spawn version 1.9 will restore 1.9 and 1.10 rules, like smaller pack sizes, and reintroduce several bugs, like no entity collision bug which affects the spawning. Placing yellow carpet tells us what is the brightness in the current spot, something different than light levels, not present in the F3 debug screen and used in several places in the spawning procedure. For instance, due to a bug, mushrooms right now require brightness of 50% or more to spawn rather than certain light levels, which I used to fix the light issues in my previous mushroom cow farm. Now a few words about a setup. Unlike many mods, this is solely a server mod for various reasons. First, you can run your world using a server at any point, even if it's your single player world, and you can run it on your own computer as well. You will then connect to your local server like it was a multiplayer server. I'll put in the description brief instructions how to do it. Second, server can run a carpet mod while you with your client can run any other mods, primarily Optifine, which some of us with more potato-y computers require to play the game. And the third reason, it is actually much easier to mod the servers than to mod the clients. Again, I'll put in the description how to apply this mod to a 1.10 vanilla server, which you can download from Mojang directly. The carpet mod is also fully transparent with the world you play in, so any changes you made to the spawning procedure would last only till the next reset, and world files should not be affected in any way, so you can safely switch back and forth to run your world with vanilla server. Making modifications to the original game code without using any modding platform like Forge ensured me also that with the default settings, performance-wise, the server should perform exactly like vanilla, and that all the original mob-related algorithms remain unchanged, unless I personally screw up something. I hope you liked the video, and I hope it's not too much information at once. If it is, you can try it piece by piece, carpet by carpet, or if you just want to check something specific, focus on that aspect only. And let me know in the comments what information you would like to get from the game, but you currently are not able to. Maybe it will find its place in the new version of the mod. If you found this video useful, don't forget to like, share and subscribe, and see you in the next one. Bye bye!